We Are Providence. Written and read by J.S. Wells. 1. Life is indeed comic, and the joke's on me. My name is Scott Atwell, and I'm the author of that quote, or rather, the purloiner, which tells you everything you need to know about where I am in life. I have survived family tragedy, a career collapse, twice. A spiritual journey that took me through 4 religions and deposited me firmly nowhere. Oh, and a house fire. An actual house fire. I didn't burn the house down myself, which I feel is important to clarify, because by that point in my life, people had started to assume. After all that, I moved to Providence, Rhode Island, a quaint little city where the old world meets the new, where the only thing more twisted than the cobblestone sidewalks turned out to be me. The one constant had to been Erica, the love of my life, my partner of a decade. But I say had been. Well, let me go back a little to a beautiful day last May. "Scott, my man, what do you think about living in Providence?" Abeo asked me with a smile as we sat at Jacques' Cafe, a quaint little coffee shop down city along the Providence River. Abeo was a co-worker of one of those aforementioned career upheavals who I reached out to as a resident of this bite-sized state. I gave it a thought as I looked out the window at the view of the city overlooking Providence River, just before it flowed on its way towards the harbor. A wind gently rippled on the surface of the water at the bases of the many iron braziers that line the center of the river. "I like it so far," I replied after a sip of coffee. "I'm still soaking it in. Seems pretty cool. The history from what I know is really interesting, and it looks like there's a lot to do. But it may take me a bit to get settled with so much going on." I continued to look out at the view of the old buildings, with a blend of more modern, like a spattering of architectural history. Many had murals painted on them that were works of art deserved in museums. I will say that there is an odd vibe going on here. "Odd, yes," Abeo responded with a chuckle. "Quite peculiar, I suppose. There's a lot of creatives and artists and misfits here. I'm sure you, my friend Scott, you'll fit right in." His demeanor shifted as he placed his coffee cup down. "I, on the other hand, I'm moving away." "Why?" I asked. You grew up here, didn't you?" "Most of my life in Rhode Island, though not all in Providence." Abeo looked out the window, seemed not to focus on anything. "It's time. Yeah, it's small and maybe too small. Everyone's all up in your business all the time. Everyone knows what everyone else is up to." We were silent for a moment. Looking out the window to the city outside, a peculiar fellow caught my eye. He was a fairly large man in an ill-fitting brown business suit, with a briefcase that swung wildly with his gait. A gait that was awkward, more of a shamble than a walk, with one leg dragging slightly. He was completely clean-shaven, with a little round sunglasses that were a little too small for his puffy, sweat-sheened face. There must have been a trick of the sun, I thought, because at one point it seemed that the dark lenses of his sunglasses darted to look towards me like they were eyes of their own, like there were enormous black eyes that shifted behind glass that itself was not tinted but clear. I hurriedly looked away and made a point to not look back as he determinedly lumbered by. "Oh, well," I said, restarting myself, "we'll see if this city can crack me out of my reclusive shell. I am, after all, a guy who found the perfect relationship with a girl who lives 2 states away." Abeo burst out laughing, loud enough that the couple at the table next to us glanced over. "Ha ha ha, Scott, my man. That's either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or the most convenient." He pointed at me like he'd caught me in something. "I'm going with convenient." "Both," I said. "Definitely both." "Ha! I'll drink to that." We clinked coffee mugs, and the rest of our conversation was just about our plans for the near future, as we wished each other luck in our goals, and we paid for our checks, and we parted. It was a beautiful May Sunday, so I decided to take a walk around the city to acclimate myself to the sights. Erica would be up for a visit on Friday, so that gave me the rest of the week to get my apartment in order. I walked through the war memorials in Memorial Park, along South Main Street, then back across the river to walk up and down the streets from Waybosset to Washington, admiring all the distinct old architecture preserved in this small city. It was refreshing to see the distinct lack of franchise storefronts, aside from the various national banks and the obligatory Dunkins and Starbucks. There were a lot of unique storefronts that included new and used bookstores, craft stores, an actual shoe repairman next to a little oddity called the Innsmouth Arts and Sciences, as well as a bevy of little restaurants and bars that I knew I'd have to frequent if money allowed. After walking through Kennedy Square, past the iconic Industrial Trust Superman building, I wandered into Burnside Park and walked amidst the families that were there enjoying the weather. My phone vibrated in my pocket, and I looked to see Erica returning my call from the previous night. It's generally a 50-50 shot if she'll answer her phone when I call. I decided to have a seat in a vacant bench by the Carrie Brown Memorial Fountain and swiped to answer. You know you're the only person whose calls I answer, right? Ha ha ha, that makes me special, she pauses. Hey, are you out? I'm just wandering around town, seeing what there's to see. Nice. Looking forward to seeing your new place. Yeah, it's still be a mess by the time you get up here, but I have a spare room I'm just going to cram all this shit in and make it look like the rest of the place is tidy-ish. No worries. Is there anything you need me to bring? Just you and my birthday present. I want presents and you here, in that order. Babe, I'm just kidding. Presents first, though. She laughed. I should have everything finished well before Friday, I think. A brief pause, and I could hear that particular quality of her trying not to sound as pleased with herself as she was. I found a lot more than I expected on one side of your family, and a lot less on the other, which is honestly the more interesting part. Huh, well, sounds mysterious. Is it something like that 23andMe thing you gave me for Christmas that just turned out kind of weird? Inconclusive, she corrected. And no, this is actual documentation. Well, up to a point. She let that sit long enough just to be annoying. You'll have to wait. You're enjoying this. A little bit, yeah. So, what's the plan for the weekend? What are we doing for your birthday? There was a pause on my end that lasted slightly too long. I've seen a lot of cool places to check out and restaurants and bars. I'll have a look online when I get back and see if there's anything going on. So, no plan. A framework? A strong framework. Uh-oh. Okay, babe, just let me know, and I'll see you on Friday. See you Friday, love. I sat for another minute by the fountain, watching the water before heading back through the park towards home. On the way through the rest of the park, I noticed a young homeless man with patchy hair working the path for handouts. He moved humbly between people, head and eyes low, only glancing up briefly to locate his next mark. When our paths were about to cross, however, he looked up at me and something shifted in his expression. Like a flash of recognition, like he knew me. Like he'd been expecting me. He rose smoothly to his full height with his arms spread wide. "My dude!" he exclaimed with a broad smile as he continued to pass me like we were old friends reunited. I kept walking, glancing back over my shoulder. He was walking backwards away from me, still grinning, still watching. His smile was wider than it had any right to be, and his teeth were long and gray, though oddly without rot. His eyes were the strangest part, the iris as dark as the pupil, giving them a solid black quality that his chaotic energy made harder to look at directly. He nearly backed into a woman with a stroller before I turned around and quickened my pace. My first thought, if I'm being honest, was to wonder if I looked homeless myself. It happens more than I'd like to admit. I have one of those faces that apparently belongs to someone everyone knows. But the more I walked, the less that explanation covered it. The suited man from the cafe window drifted back to my mind uninvited. Those black lenses that hadn't seemed like lenses at all. I walked faster. Back at the apartment, I closed the door behind me, turned the deadbolt, and leaned against it for a moment in that particular silence that only your own four walls can provide. I let out a long breath. Outside was a lot. Providence was a lot. I was an introvert who had just moved to a city that was taking an uncomfortable amount of personal interest in me, and I needed a minute. The two strange encounters floated back up to the surface of my thoughts. The suited man's lenses, the homeless man's teeth, both of them looking at me like I was someone they had been expecting. I turned it over once, decided I was in a new city, I was tired and overstimulated, so I filed away under, Providence is just weird. I pushed off the door and surveyed my apartment. Boxes everywhere. A coffee maker that could be in any one of 6 of them. A home bar in the promising but early stages of assembly. Priorities. The spare room already quietly threatening to become a permanent storage unit. I put on some music, found the coffee maker in the 3rd attempt, and got on with the business of being home. The next few days were spent mostly at home, which suited me fine. There was plenty to do without going anywhere, boxes to unpack, a home bar to coax into existence, and a spare room that needed to look like a conscious design choice rather than the evidence of a man in crisis. Even if I wanted to venture out, the apartment had a reasonable claim on my time. I told myself that. As I looked online for things to do for Erica's visit, I ate from local takeouts, trying to find the best Thai, Chinese, and pizza. I made reservations at Hemingway's and Providence Oyster Bar for local seafood, and an intriguing place called the Red Door that has really good cocktails and is able to make everything gluten-free on request for Erica's fragile gut flora. I tagged a couple of other bars like the Eddie and the Royal Bobcat as well to hit the seemingly vast cocktail scene. In my search for events, I found that this coming weekend would be the first of several events held throughout the year called Waterfire. On special weekends, the city lights those iron braziers on fire down the center of Providence 3 rivers, when the tides are just right. It seemed like the thing to do, so my job was done. A great weekend was in sight, and maybe, I thought, I could finally take a breath and enjoy life again.